to the extent I can tell you that we have had 2 polls done in All Saints West. And whereas the young man there, Anthony Smith, won by a huge margin, I don't think he can win the seat the next time around. I even had to call the 2 pollsters to find out what's going on. I'm not going to share the full details, but the reality is the Labour Party has a stronger core of support in that constituency today than the UPP. And that has been proven empirically. And I've tried to figure out, but wait, what's going on here? Because we're still relatively young in the term. But you see a lot of nuisances were removed, all of the rhetoric and so on. I mean, now people have settled and they recognize tourism is at a record high. Both cruise tourism, overnight tourism, people are working. I think they have now reflected and recognized that the UPP was just spouting a bunch of lies. They had this perhaps dispensation to believe because they were vexed. They were vexed because of COVID and the vaccine mandates and so on, plus all other issues that they were experiencing. But now that things have settled and they're looking at things objectively, I think they recognize that those who they elected on the UPP benches, that they are not ready for prime time. They have not provided good representation. They have not done anything for their constituents. They're just literally taking up space. And I think now that the very people, a number of individuals who supported them, want to see the back of them. And I'll add here too, when you look at what happened in rural West, in which when we held the primary, about 2,300 people signed up. We had to be taken off people. We only got 1,600 votes, The guy there, Richard Lewis, got about 17 something, no more than 1,800. More people signed up to participate in our primary to select a candidate in rural West than individuals who voted.
Did you see
for Richard Lewis?
Did you see that reflection in the All Saints West constituency?
We didn't see that level of participation.
Response.
And perhaps maybe the candidates need to work a little harder. So I'm hoping that if perchance they end up in another primary, that we will see, a much larger response. But in the case of rural West, it was shocking that the amount of people who were moved to participate in that particular contest exceeded the amount of votes that Richard Lewis got, significantly so, and Gail Christian. And you know what we found too? A lot of people in the constituency were not even registered in the constituency. And that's why we had to take them off the list. They live in the area. Take, for instance, down at Denfields. I mean, whoever was canvassing with Gail, and maybe Gail has to take some responsibility, more than half the people down there were not registered to vote in rural West. So whereas they signed up and genuinely would have been eligible to vote in rural West, the reality was they're still registered in another constituency, so we had to take them off the list, even though they live and still live at Denfield. So I think that the prospects are very good, and I am not guessing here. I mean, we are speaking with empirical record, and I can say here that we have had 2 pollsters who have polled for us. We have had Don Anderson, we have had Peter Wickham, and that is what the situation is, that the Labour Party is in a far better position. I mean, and I'm glad we won too, because when you look at how the economy has performed since COVID, and you see the kind of rates of growth, 8%. When you look at the amount of arrivals, overnight arrivals, for example, this year is going to be a record year. For cruise tourism, this year will be a record year again. And by the way, next year, we're poised to exceed the amount of cruise tourists as well as overnight tourists. In fact, I'm told that next year we should have at least 1 million cruise tourists next year. But why did that happen? It happened because we built out the cruise infrastructure. For the UPP alone, it would not have happened. They fought us when we were engaging global ports. We had to fight to get the funding so we could build out the infrastructure. And as a consequence, we're now benefiting from record arrivals. So, and again, if they're in government, they'll tell the people, even though they just come, they'll say, look at this, record arrivals, cruise tourists and overnight tourists. This is what we have done, when they would have benefited from our work. But they say God doesn't do his work and spoil it. And the reality is we're now seeing the reward of our efforts. And I think the people of Antigua and Barbuda could now recognize that, hey, look, these guys have performed. My administration has performed.